ani. That's my tribal language for hello. Welcome to lesson 27, the book of Proverbs. It's important to define terms or words first. So the word proverb simply means a short or a wise saying. And a proverb isn't a super spiritual term in the sense that it's exclusive to the Bible. Proverbs have always been popular throughout history. For example, Benjamin Franklin wrote a book called Poor Richard's Almanac, which was filled with proverbs with wise sayings and other practical things for the people of his day. It was so popular, he sold as many as 10,000 copies a year, which would be like on the New York Times bestseller list today. Phenomenal distribution that he received for spreading around these wise sayings. You may have heard of a penny saved is a penny earned, or I like this one. How many observe Christ's birthday? How few his precepts? Or another proverb from the wise Mr. Soche. A U of M fan and his brain are soon parted. So, the book of Proverbs is primarily a collection of select wise sayings. In 1 Kings 4:32, it says Solomon wrote 3,000 proverbs. Not all of them made it into the book of Proverbs in the Bible, but quite a few did, which means these are the select, the best of the best. Remember, Solomon as someone who would be able to write proverbs like this had an exchange with God that's recorded in 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 5 through 13. So follow along. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night, and God said, "Ask what you wish me to give you." Then Solomon said, "You have shown great loving kindness to your servant David, my father. Accordingly, he walked before you in truth and righteousness and uprightness of heart towards you. And you have reserved for him this great loving kindness, that you have given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day. Now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. Yet I am but a little child. I do not know how to go out or to come in. Your servant is in the midst of your people which you have chosen, a great people which are too many to be numbered or counted. So give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours?" And it was pleasing in the sight of the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. And God said to him, "Because you have asked this thing and have not asked for yourself long life, nor have asked riches for yourself, nor have asked for the life of your enemies, but you have asked for yourself wisdom to understand justice. Behold, I have done according to your words. Behold, I have given you a wise and discerning heart, so that has been no one like you before, or nor shall there be one like you to arise after you." Pretty good stuff. And it kind of leads me to wonder if God were to grant you one wish, what would it be? Besides asking for an infinite number of wishes, that's kind of unfair and cheating since you can only ask for one wish. What would you ask for? Would it be wisdom, like Solomon asked for? Or would most of us things like wealth, power, money, some kind of superpower, the ability to fly or turn invisible, or one I think about a lot, the power to eat anything without gaining weight? That would be kind of cool. So maybe if you want to, let's do a little bit of, interactiveness. And in the comment section down below, maybe you might want to comment on what is it that you would ask for if God asked you to grant you one wish. Be an interesting exercise to consider. But it does remind me of a story. You see, one day there were three men walking along on a beach on the seashore. And during their walk, they spotted in the distance a bottle half buried in the sand. And together, they pulled it out, and a genie popped out of the bottle and said, "Normally, I grant the person who finds this bottle and releases me three wishes, but since there's three of you, I will grant each one of you one wish. So the first man pushed himself up to the front and said, I know what I want. I want you to make me the smartest person in the world. And so the genie said, abracadabra, you're the smartest person in the world. And he immediately started talking about philosophy and politics. And not to be outdone, the second man put his way up to the front and says, I know what I want, genie. Make me 10 times smarter than the first guy. And so the genie said, abracadabra. And all of a sudden he started talking about physics and calculus and algorithms. And the last guy thought he had the benefit of learning from the first two. And so he stood up before the genie and said, Genie, please make me 100 times smarter than the second guy. And the genie said, abracadabra, you're a woman. Sorry, guys, but it does lead me to a point. In Proverbs, wisdom is often pictured as being a woman or being like a woman. Let me read to you from Proverbs chapter 8, verses 1 through 11. And it says, does not wisdom call and understanding lift up her voice? So wisdom is defined as a her in this metaphor. On top of the heights, besides the way where the paths meet, she takes her stand. Beside the gate at the opening into the city, at the entrance of the doors, she cries out. To you, O men, I call, and my voice to the sons of men. O naive ones, understand prudence, and O fools, understand wisdom. Listen, for I will speak noble things, for the opening of my lips will reveal right things. For my mouth will utter truth, and wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the utterances of my mouth are in righteousness. There is nothing crooked or perverted in them. They are all straightforward to him who understands, and right to those who find knowledge. Take my instruction and not silver, and knowledge rather than choicest gold. For wisdom is better than jewels, and all desirable things cannot compare with her. No, guys, this doesn't mean all women are smarter than men. My wife seems to think so, but that's another point. What it is trying to convey in Proverbs 8 is the principle that if a man wants to be wise, he must have such an intimate relationship with wisdom, much like when a man loves a woman. And Proverbs is interesting as well in the way that it honors women even more. Proverbs 31, I'm sure you're familiar with. Sometimes it's even called the Proverbs 31 woman chapter. Proverbs 31 is the highest elevation concerning the value of women in all of ancient literature. Because you see, women didn't often have equal rights in ancient culture. They don't even have equal rights in some modern cultures. Often women couldn't vote. They didn't have the right to an education or were able to go to school. And oftentimes they couldn't even have the right to own anything. So women certainly weren't given the same social and economic standing as men were in ancient times. There was even a Pharisaical prayer that's documented as being prayed during the time of Jesus that went like this. Lord, I thank you that you didn't make me a Gentile, a tax gatherer, or a woman. So you see, women were lumped together with two groups of people, Gentiles who were apart from the law and apart from relationship with God, and tax gatherers who were considered traitors to the Jewish people because they were Jews themselves who sided with Rome and took as much money as they could from their fellow Jews, Israelites. And women were lumped together with those two classes of people. So that was during the time of Jesus. So Proverbs 31 is different when it comes to providing a godly perspective on the value of women. Moving on, and FYI, according to various surveys, the most well-known verses in the Old Testament are found in Proverbs. Think of it this way. If I were to ask you what's the most famous verse or verses in the New Testament, most of you would probably immediately think of John 3:16. So what's the John 3:16 of the Old Testament? Well, it's Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways, and he will make your path straight. More people know that passage of Scripture in the Old Testament than any other. And finally, it's interesting that Proverbs says very little about the afterlife or eternity. It's a book of application, how to live wisely here, now, in this life. So take it to heart, live it, and you'll know the wisdom of Solomon that God gave him. In fact, again, in the comment section below, if you'd like, write down one proverb of your own making, of your own creation, something that you believe would be important, that you've learned, to share with everyone that's viewing this video. I'd be curious to see what you'd have to share, and I think so would everybody else. So get to thinking, and get to writing, and get to living like the book of Proverbs says.